Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. Hello, everyone. From all over the world, Bidenomics. Joe Biden pushing his economic theories. Is the public buying it? I don't think so. Wildfires only halfway through the season. And today's news conference in Canada involving federal officials looked very much like the kind of news conference that we had during the pandemic. The Sound of Freedom still raking in big bucks at the box office. Flying Cars. The Fun Guys. Magic Mushroom Store in Windsor, Ontario, Canada got busted. Pierre Poilievre has a new look. We're going to show you a flying bathtub. OceanGate has suspended all operations. Still a lot of concern about a possible attack, sabotage, an explosion possibly coming, a false flag or a real attack. We don't know which, or if it will even happen at all. But there's all this talk about something bad possibly about to happen at that nuclear power plant that Russia controls in Russian territory. The hottest day on record. Number 3 in a row. Are we doomed? And some guy who went and was reported missing by his mom, what, about like over a decade ago, was never missing at all. If I tell you, the stories just get weirder and weirder every day. And I keep on coming back for more. And it's cooking my brain. I'll be right back. And we'll start digging into the details.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We're still banned over on Facebook, so if you're trying to watch on Facebook, don't do that. You can't see us there. I've been telling everybody for months and months and months and months, you have to subscribe on Rumble because that's where we'll go when we get kicked off these platforms. We got kicked off Facebook. And we'll get back there maybe in a couple more days if they decide to let us do that. You know, it's like just arbitrary, but we're not there. And if you're trying to watch on Facebook, you can't hear me talking anyway. So what does it matter? All I'm doing here is whining about Facebook. And justifiably so. It's the dumbest of the dumb things that I've seen in probably a month. Oh, they say, you can't send messages. So if this is the other thing, if you are trying to message me on Facebook and I know a lot of you who watch on these other platforms, sometimes you do. I get a lot of messages by Facebook, but I'm not allowed to respond. I can read messages, I can't respond. So if I don't have your email or some other way to reach you, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. They won't let me respond. They said, get this, something you're suspended from using your Facebook Messenger because something in your messages went against our community guidelines. They don't even tell me what. And I'll tell you, all I was doing was saying hi to people and whatever. So anyhow, I see somebody just emailed me or sent me a message with their email. Thank you. Anyways, I'm not ignoring people. I'm really sorry. I think that's the whole plan. Just they did it so that everyone would think that I was just being rude, and then they would all not like me anymore. But it's not true. It's just Facebook being the authoritarian thugs that they are. And some guy who worked for Facebook, some executive now, has come out and he's warning everybody that Mark Zuckerberg has too much power. Don't trust him. This all coming out now as the federal government in Canada goes head to head. They declare war on Meta and Facebook because of Bill C-18, where they're saying that, Meta is saying, we're not going to pay the mainstream legacy media because it's not worth it to us. And Justin Trudeau and his minions are there saying, yes, you will. You must come and negotiate. And it really does show this how powerful Facebook has become. And yet Facebook and YouTube especially, and Twitter until Elon Musk took over, and maybe even now, maybe we just don't know, but these are all basically arm's length entities of the government anyway. Anyhow, now they're fighting. This is what I said yesterday. It's like they're making themselves irrelevant. They're shooting themselves in the foot because they treat their inventory, us, and their customers, the advertisers, with contempt. And they think they're so big that they're immune to any kind of negative repercussions when they act like jerks. I don't really care that much. We had lots of people watching, but everybody's migrating over to Rumble anyway, so whoop-de-doo. And then pretty soon, the only things you'll be able to watch on YouTube and Facebook is cat videos, which can be very entertaining if you're into cats. I personally do not partake. Anyway, let's get into some other stuff here. First up, I was going to talk about Bidenomics, but we'll get to that later. You know what the big story is? The Sound of Freedom. Everybody's talking about it. I haven't seen the movie. Have not seen it. But I'll tell you, everybody is talking about it. And it is kicking butt at the box office. It is raking in more money. It took in more money than the new Indiana Jones film over the past weekend, or whenever it opened, was July 4th, right? Yeah. Anyway, it's doing real well. And it was a sleeper, man. Like huge. Huge. It's making waves in the entertainment industry, capturing the hearts of viewers and critics even. I would say it's a highly political movie. Highly political. It appeals absolutely to people on the freedom-oriented right-wing side of the political spectrum. And it is open to an overwhelmingly positive response. People are buzzing with curiosity about its box office numbers, its production budget, and the numbers are really surprising. Sound of Freedom draws inspiration from the incredible anti-trafficking work of Tim Ballard, the founder of Operation Underground Railroad. O-U-R. Isn't that an interesting title? You know, here where I live, this is the home of the original Underground Railroad, which was a pathway to freedom for fugitive slaves back in the day. A lot of history here. The film, The Sound of Freedom, takes us on a journey through Ballard's life, showing how he made a bold decision to leave his job as a special agent with U.S. Homeland Security investigations and dedicate himself to rescuing children from Latin American cartels and human trafficking rings. So one of the standout features of the Sound of Freedom film is the cast. Jim Caviezel, Mira Sorvino, and Bill Camp all deliver apparently, great performances. As again, I have not seen it, but what I have seen is a lot of interviews with Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard. In fact, I was aware of Mr. Ballard months ago, at least 6 months, maybe before that, where he talked about his job. But what sets Sound of Freedom apart is also not just the political side, but its faith-based elements, which I suppose some people would say is also political. Religion, politics. People say, you want to keep the church and the state separate, but I'd say that politics is absolutely part of religion and politics, absolutely kind of intertwine. So the film resonates strongly with viewers, obviously, which is why I'm getting so much messaging about it, as it combines real life events with an overarching theme of activism, the politics. This combination adds weight to the story, making it a strong contender among other theatrical releases, which is why it has done so well at the box office. And it really does kind of take this broader issue of child sex trafficking and abuse and humanizes it by focusing on one particular story and one particular little girl. Now, it wasn't all smooth sailing for Sound of Freedom. The film faced numerous challenges during its production, including budgetary and distribution issues. After completing filming in 2018, the movie secured a distribution deal with 20th Century Fox. But when Walt Disney acquired the studio, Sound of Freedom ended up being shelved. Gee, I wonder why. Isn't that interesting? Walt Disney shelved it. They're pretty woke. Undeterred, the film's producer spent more than a year working to regain the rights to the movie from Disney. Finally, when the rights were released, another obstacle emerged in the form of the pandemic, which delayed the film's theatrical release again. Now, there is a silver lining to all this for the producers, of course, and you're seeing the fruits of that at the box office. After the rights to Sound of Freedom were released by Disney, the producer took it to a small upstart studio called Angel Studios. The studio acquired the worldwide rights to the film and turned to equity crowdfunding to raise funds for marketing and distribution. Now, this is pretty remarkable because in just 2 weeks, over 7,000 people invested in the project, raising about $5 million. And prior to the crowdfunding success, the estimated budget for Sound of Freedom was about $14.5 million. With additional funds raised through crowdfunding, the film was able to overcome its financial challenges and has now been able to reach a wider audience. Now, it's not playing at the theater here in my hometown, but apparently there are places you can watch it online, and it is in theaters and many other places. And so, as I say, Jim Caviezel has been making the rounds on the podcast circuit. And I've got a little clip queued up for you here right now with the star of the show, who also was the star in Passion of the Christ. Here he is, Jim Caviezel on War Room.
And then obviously
the child trafficking and
just a lot of nefarious stuff going on. And then every time I do a film, I'm always working with agents all the time. So this would continually
with agents about every trafficking of
no, just like I'll be working homicide and trafficking would come up. I'm working with ATF, trafficking would come up. And then you start going into the dark web of looking at other stuff, and then it came across the children, and that's where it went into the things that I couldn't even grasp. And then when I started working with Tim Ballard, he brought up the organ harvesting, and of course this is a flashback to all the other stuff. And so Tim was somebody that I also had my friends tell me what kind of guy he was, but they sent me the script. And I was blown away. Alejandro Monteverde and Eduardo Verástegui met with me, and then Tim Ballard wanted me based on 2 films I did. One was The Count of Monte Cristo, and the other was Passion of the Christ, and that's how it all came to be.
What was it about Ballard's story that attracted you to it?
Well, like the part I was saying earlier was that knowing what I went through and adopting our children and seeing the threats against children globally and the dangers again with them. So I thought that this had what it could do, like what The Passion did. I mean, bringing people to their faith. And this part of it is taking action. And as I told you earlier, we don't have a country. We don't have a south border. By definition, you have to have borders, and we don't. And then drawing a light on what is truly going on. It's a $152 billion a year business. That's insane.
152 billion.
150.
Is that the sex part, or is that the sex and the organ harvesting part combined?
So the trafficking part is 32 billion. 32 to 34 billion is buying and selling the children. But if I have a child, let's say, for example, little Joey, he makes me $20,000 a day for 10 hits with 10 different clients. I'm his pimp. He procures that money. That's 20 grand. There's 152 billion. So to give you an idea what that is, that's every major sports team in the world. All the NBA, all the Major League Baseball, all World Cup soccer, NFL, all that combined, and still not 152. You would have to send every 18-year-old this year that graduates high school to Stanford University for 4 years, and that would be 152 billion.
Those are, huge numbers. I don't know where the source is for that. Those are amazing numbers. Billions of dollars. More than all the professional sports leagues. Wow. Got to learn more about that. I'm going to do some more research into it. Check things out. That sounds off the chart. Crazy. I know they're talking about really not just what's going on in the United States and maybe Canada, but they're talking about around the world. And they're talking also about changes in U.S. law that after 9/11, and I'm not sure if the timing on this particular aspect of things is relevant or not, but after 9/11, there were changes to U.S. law that allowed the Department of Homeland Security and agents to go into other countries, and if they could find an American link to child sex crimes or child sex abuse crimes, they would the agents could treat the perpetrators, if there was an American link, as though they were on American soil and bring them back to face charges. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that works through international law, and I'm not sure how that can possibly work in other countries in terms of, other countries having sovereignty over their own domain, their own countries, unless there are special agreements in place between countries. But apparently that's what was going on, according to these guys. So this Mr. Ballard, who was an agent, was going into other countries and trying to extract and save kids who were being abused. Now, Mr. Caviezel has made this film, which is a dramatic representation of the facts. It's not, I wouldn't say a documentary. It's sort of, I think, a biography, but I have to watch the movie. And people are saying the production values are very high, that it's a great movie. It really grabs you emotionally. So I absolutely want to see it. I want to check it out. I can't say anything more about it other than that. If you guys have seen the film, maybe you want to chat amongst yourselves. And I'm just going to take a look here in the chat and see what everybody's saying tonight. Yeah. Choosy says he'd like to hear some questions from Mel Gibson. Yeah, who of course was involved and directed, I believe, Passion of the Christ with Caviezel. What else are we saying here? Not too many other comments about this in the chat. Yeah, and Indiana Jones, get this. I mean, this movie, The Sound of Freedom, was produced for a fraction of what the Indiana Jones flick was produced for, the new Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was made with a budget of $295 million. And The Sound of Freedom took in more money than Indiana Jones, killing it at the box office, and has now made all the money back that went into the production. They did that in just 5 days or something in that range. But anyway, they've got their investment back. And now from this point on, it's pure profit. I find it interesting, and I don't know if this is divine intervention. Who knows? Coincidence? Planning that we're not aware of? But, you know, this thing was produced back in 2018, according to the information we have. And yet it's really just now getting its distribution and getting the attention of the public. But the timing seems to be right on cue, doesn't it? Strange how that is when this movie's coming out, right as all this concern about drag queen story time, gender affirming care, sex change operations for kids, inappropriate books being distributed and shown to kids in schools, concerns about the sex education curriculum in various education systems, all of these issues coming to the forefront, protests daily now on the streets with people clashing over these issues in front of school board offices, schools, shopping malls, libraries, just out in the middle of the street. And now this movie comes out. I don't think, you know, they could have picked the timing any better. It hit the theaters and hit the streaming services just as all of these issues seem to be at a fever pitch, which no doubt helped it at the box office. And I think that's also why there's been such a huge amount of interest in these interviews on these podcasts online. The one with Jordan Peterson, I think, has well over 1 million views now. And these, as Caviezel does the tour, going from podcast, live stream to live stream, recorded interview to recorded interview. He's racking up huge numbers online, not just for the movie itself. And it looks like the momentum for the film is not about to stop. Definitely got to go see it. Check it out. I don't know what to make of it beyond that because I have not seen it, but a lot of people giving me very positive reviews about it. And I'm kind of interested in analyzing it from a political perspective as well. And, you know, the other interesting thing is they're using this hashtag Save the Children. Isn't it interesting that they're using that hashtag that was banned by Facebook back in 2020? It's been around and in use by the QAnon group since 2016. And now it's being used by the Save the Children convoy, the same hashtag. Not to mention that it's being used and has been used for years by the Save the Children charity, which has nothing to do with any of this stuff. But the Save the Children convoy, definitely the theme of that, the focus of that is, at least in part, in alignment with the theme of the movie, The Sound of Freedom. All these things seem to tie together, and the timing is like right on cue. Like I said, it's a little bit weird, almost creepy. But Jim Caviezel picks his projects based partly on his faith and how the projects, mesh with his political and perspectives, his political perspectives, and his perspectives on faith as well. Obviously, a Christian. Pretty cool. Anyway, just a little weird too, the timing on all this stuff, but because that movie is, I think, just it's fueling all of the, a lot of interest and a lot of emotions surrounding the protests, the convoy, the interest in all of these other issues that have really percolated to a boiling point. Just saying, a little bit weird. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And our coverage of today's top news stories will continue here on the Maverick News Channel.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Bidenomics 101. Joe Biden trying to sell his Bidenomics and teaching about Bidenomics, and we'll figure out what that's all about right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So Joe Biden was speaking at some energy company about, some company merger or whatever, but he was using the opportunity today to speak about his economic plan, which his administration is trying to sell to the public as Bidenomics. Well, I'm a little worried about the economy in general. And when Joe Biden, who has trouble just keeping it together during a speech and has trouble stringing 2 or 3 words together and doesn't appear to have it all up together upstairs, when he starts talking about there's this, his own personal economic theories, I get even more worried. Well, today he was selling Bidenomics from the podium again. Thought we'd run a little clip of that. And, this is, I think, his attempt to shore up support from the public and polish up his image and convince people that he's getting it right when he's clearly getting it wrong. Bidenomics? Oh, this is his alternative to trickle-down economics, which you may remember, references to, especially during the Reagan and Bush eras. Cut taxes, stimulate the economy by making sure more money is left in the pockets of taxpayers, get government out of the way of companies so that there are fewer regulations. And therefore, streamline the pathway to prosperity and productivity. Well, Bidenomics kind of takes a different approach. It sure does. Here's Joe Biden kind of trying to sell what a lot of people don't really want to buy because, everything he's done has resulted in massive inflation. And then I'm going to give you some poll numbers when we finish listening to this little clip of the Prez.
Talk about what we're doing to invest in America. And I mean invest in America, all of America, starting here in South Carolina. And to talk about the progress we made in building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not trickling down. When you build from the middle out and the bottom up, everybody does well. The wealthy still do very well. But that trickle-down economy, not a whole lot dropped on my dad's kitchen table growing up. All part of an economic vision for this country. I came to office determined, to the point that some of my own team thought I was too determined, to change the economic direction of this country, to move trickle-down economics and get rid of it for everyone. From the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, called the program Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it as a compliment at the time. Our plan is working. And one of the things I'm proudest of is working everywhere, not just in the coast and big cities like previous recoveries. This time, investment is working in factories being built and jobs being created, happening in rural America, the heartland, all across America, in communities that have been left out and hollowed out. This is what it looks like across the country. Over 13 million new jobs since I've been elected to office. More jobs than any president's ever created in the first 2 years. Nearly 800,000 manufacturing jobs, including 14,000 in this state alone. This state alone. And again, that's more in 2 years than was created in 4 years in any other administration. Unemployment been below 4% for the longest time in 50 years. Inflation is less than half of what it was a year ago, and we're continuing to work on it. I know we have more to do. Bringing down inflation remains one of my top priorities. Job satisfaction nationally is at a 36-year high. The share of working age Americans in the workforce is as high as it's been in 30 years. Remember they used to say, Biden spent all this money to keep people from working? People are off the sidelines. 20 years high, higher than every single one of my predecessors. And to pay for low-wage workers, the pay for low-wage workers, has grown at the fastest pace in 2 decades. And folks, it's no accident. It's Bidenomics in action. Trickle-down economics has failed the country for decades. It means slashing public investment on things that helped America lead the world in innovation. We used to invest 2% of our entire gross domestic product in research and development. You know what it is now? 0.7%. We used to be ranked #1 in the world in research and development. Know where we're ranked now? #9. China's #8 a decade ago, and now China's #2. And other countries are closing in fast. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. We used to have the fastest infrastructure, the best infrastructure in the world, rated #1. Now we're rated #13 in the world in infrastructure. How can you have the best economy in the world and not have the best infrastructure in the world? Under my predecessor, Infrastructure Week became a punchline. Every month. Anyway, I won't get into it. On my watch, we're making infrastructure a decade headline. A decade. Yesterday, we announced that since I took office, we've attracted $500 billion, $497 billion in private investment in American manufacturing, both here and around the world. It's historic. And it's Bidenomics in action. Instead of exporting jobs to cheaper labor costs, what we did for decades, we're creating jobs here and exporting American product, not jobs. That's the story here in South Carolina.
So that's what he's telling us. That's what he wants everyone to believe. The reality is inflation is much higher than they want us to realize. not just in the United States, but in Canada as well. It's because of all the quantitative easing, all the money. And so there he is standing up there at the podium, teaching Bidenomics 101 to the masses. And why is he doing it? Well, it's because he has an approval rating problem. He has, the majority of people, majority of Americans and voters rejecting his performance and his ideas on the economy. Polls continue to show strong disapproval of the administration's economic policies. That's why he went to South Carolina today. He was there to announce what? More new spending on what? Clean energy manufacturing. Well, is it really clean energy? Well, that's always kind of open to debate, isn't it? As we've seen, is it truly green when you're engaging in strip mining to extract lithium, leaving a great big pockmarked crater on the face of the earth? Anyway, that's another issue. But Biden had a 60% disapproval rating in a recent Fox News poll back in June, not just days ago. Now that's up 7% from last year, but still not very high, not really that good. And very low approval ratings in terms of, his economic performance from other polls as well. So he's on tour and he's now trying to sell his approach to handling the economy, his Inflation Reduction Act, which really doesn't address inflation at all. In fact, the policies, in my view, and a lot of other economists see it the same way, it's going to add to inflation. In fact, that's why we saw in Windsor, Ontario, just yesterday, finally, a deal was struck to reignite construction on that Stellantis electric vehicle battery plant. Billions of dollars on the line. The company had a deal with the federal and provincial government there, right on the Windsor-Detroit border, right there on the border with the Motor City, Detroit. And they had a deal to build this big battery plant, but then it fell apart. Not clear why. They never exactly said why, other than to say, we now know because of what was said yesterday, where they kind of put the deal back together and announced that they will indeed resume construction on the plant. But it's because the company went back to the government basically and said, hey, you know what? You guys have to cough up more cash because of the Inflation Reduction Act, because in the United States, they're giving away so much free money to auto companies that it doesn't make sense for us to stay here unless you match what the Biden administration would offer us on the U.S. side of the border. We know that's a big part of what happened in that deal that almost did not happen, but they've now put it back together. People are applauding that. It does mean a lot for the community of Windsor, Ontario, and for Stellantis, no question about it. But it's just so much money, And I don't know if they're ever really going to get that money back. You have to look at what's going to happen with competition from other countries, and we've talked about this. But 2,500 jobs will be created, but I think it's $5 billion is what will be spent on that facility. Up the road, about an hour and a half in St. Thomas, Ontario, Volkswagen building an even bigger plant. $13 billion various levels of government are investing in that. So the Bidenomics tour over the next, that's going to continue tomorrow, so it's a 2-day deal, comes as, Republicans have tried to use that term to kind of smear Biden. They used it in a pejorative way, but and he kind of wisely, I think, he's embraced it in a way. It's kind of wise. It kind of heads them off at the pass where they already were, if that makes sense. So they hit them with this phrase that is meant to be pejorative or negative, and they say it's Bidenomics, but he embraces it and turns that negative into a positive, or tries to. But Donald Trump, he's still using the term. He says Bidenomics is high taxes, crippling regulations, crushing inflation, war on American energy, soaring energy costs, job-killing globalist international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord, and total economic surrender to China and other foreign countries. And that is a quote from the Donald. The economy is, I would say, Biden's weakest, well, maybe not his weakest, but one of his weakest portfolios. And he's on tour trying to make it better. Okay, let's take a look and see what else is going on in the world of news tonight. Oh, my goodness. Well, down there in Windsor, Ontario, the other night, we saw that, Leo went into Leo, mouth of the South. Good man. He went in and showed us the Fun Guys, the magic mushroom store. And he said they're going to raid this place. The cops are going to come in and bust them because, what they're doing is technically illegal. Sure enough, today, Windsor Police in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, went down and raided the magic mushroom store, the Fun Guys. So, some people liked the store and there's other people didn't. I wouldn't say they're permanently closed when they've done this in other towns. I think they have some 13 different locations in various parts of Canada and Ontario. They've sometimes reopened within hours, but the cops were in there today, and we are told that they were confiscating all kinds of things. They were taking down posters. They confiscated their money processing terminals, their ATM. They took televisions from the place, TV screens. They took as much, I guess, as they possibly could to try to disrupt things and make it difficult for the store to reopen. The guy who kind of is the proprietor of all these magic mushroom stores, of course, is vowing to push back and do whatever he can to deal with this in court and keep the doors open on the Fun Guys Magic Mushroom Store in Windsor, Ontario, located in downtown Windsor, Ontario. Advocates of what they're doing, obviously saying this is, the mushrooms naturally occurring source of, what is it? Well, it's a hallucinogen, I guess. Not my scene, as I've said. I do not partake in drugs. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't take any kind of drugs. I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke nothing. And I don't eat mushrooms. I don't do anything. I just keep my mind clear. You do what you want to do. It's almost a free country. Almost, because they shut that place down. And, I just, for me personally, I don't have a need. If you, whatever, go ahead. And we're going to have those two guys. Oh, what were their names? I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember the names. Anyway, the two marijuana activists from Vancouver, where we saw the proprietor of the drugs store pass away just about 1 week ago, last Friday, Jerry Martin. These guys knew him, and they came on the show here. Leo hooked us up with them. Great show, talking about the way that they are using marijuana to help wean drug addicts off hard drugs by giving away, free marijuana. And they also have a store where they sell marijuana. And they're going to be back on this program Sunday night and they're going to be taking calls from you, because when they were on here, it was just me interviewing them. You guys will have an opportunity to call in and speak with them directly. That is what the whole idea behind Sunday show is going to be. And I think Leo is going to join us for the conversation too, along with you guys. So going to be a great conversation. Educational, even for those who are interested in the aspects of marijuana that are recreational. Okay, so Elon Musk thinks electric cars are really dumb. That's why Tesla is getting into, not electric cars, sorry. Let me rewind. Elon Musk thinks flying cars are really dumb. That's why Tesla is investing in an electric car company. We'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Let's just go to the chat, just see what's being said in here. George says, you pick shrooms and golf course near home. He's talking to someone, but not me. What else we seeing? Oh, yeah. Leo, Mouth of the South, says that Paul Hartman will be on the program here with us Sunday as well, which is pretty cool. So that's good. He was on the show before. Looking forward to that. Joe Michaels says Rick is turning Japanese. I rather think so. I'm not sure why. Could well be the case. Speaking of which, that was interesting. I think there's going to be a big not anti-war, but a peace rally. Lori sent me some information about it. I think it's happening in New York City. And some confusion about the dates, but from the poster that I saw today, there was some confusion. Some people thought it was happening today, but it isn't. It's going to happen on August 6th, and it's going to be something kind of put together by our friend Caleb Maupin at the Center for Political Innovation, and it's going to mark the anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, you know what I'm thinking? I think we should get Caleb on the program to talk about that. That's what I think. Or maybe somebody else. In fact, I think that they've got a couple of cool speakers. Maybe we could arrange to get one of them on here. A couple of them, some pretty big names too. So we'll see what we can do about that in advance, before the event on August 6th. Definitely got to check that out. What else do we have in the chat tonight? Northern Farm Girl. Oh, she's a partaker of magic mushrooms. Says, I eat wild ones, got to know poison ones, eh? Or you're dead, eh? Yeah, no kidding. I know really very little or nothing about the subject. So I personally I'd stay away from anything wild, because I wouldn't know what the heck I was picking to eat. Let's see here. Pure Knight says, no electric cars are reliable in Canada wintertime. It's a complete joke. Combustion engine isn't going anywhere. I hope so. My car's running like crap. I have to fix it. My internal combustion engine on my Volkswagen. So that's a project for me. I'm waiting for some parts to come in. Not always easy to get the parts that you want at a reasonable price for a Volkswagen, but you can get them. You just have to wait a little longer sometimes. So today I didn't go anywhere. I just walked around the old-fashioned way. Yeah, there's a good question. Mouth of the South says, where's Dragon? I don't know. I haven't seen him in the chat. But, I don't really watch the chat as closely as maybe I should. So I don't know. TKR says he's a mechanic and he doesn't like VW. I grew up not liking VWs, but since owning a couple, I've learned to appreciate them for their own quirky little things. They're just different. And as I've learned more about them, I've become more comfortable with them. Not my favorite car, but I've come to appreciate them actually. And my little Volkswagen Golf City, I got to tell you, it's just so basic. I love the darn thing. It's like a Volkswagen version of a Civic in some ways, just because of its simplicity. And I love that about a car. That's just me. I don't want all the fancy dancy, super duper Bluetooth, super satellite, double quadruple, super injected digital Bluetooth quadraphonic stereo on wheels. I want a car with a motor, and I want something that's I want a car, maybe with a radio. I'm just old, I guess. Yeah, Golf City. Yeah, I've got a 2-point slow in my car. Not the 2.5 there. But actually I'll tell you this. I'm on an automotive kick right now. Volkswagen GTI. Little rocking on wheels, man. Telling you. And they handle like a go-kart. Love them. Volkswagen GTI. Turbocharged. Lots of power. Volkswagen GTI, and affordable. Fast. Fun to drive. Great daily. Like beyond good. Like really good. Just like these Civics, Civic R's, Man, just really good. Civics are even better. But just my opinion. I like them. Okay, so what are we going to dig into now? I forget what the next story was here. Let me just see. So fun guys. How about Pierre Poilievre? Oh, we were going to talk about the flying cars. All right, let's do that first. Okay. That's why I was talking about cars. I got off topic because I was on topic. Elon Musk. He said flying cars are dumb. Here, I'll prove it. Here it is. Elon Musk thinks flying cars are a dumb idea. He explained why he doesn't think we should be filling our skies, above cities with them. Elon Musk might be the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, but he's not buying into the idea of flying cars. Former President Donald Trump was adamant the United States, not China, would lead the revolution in air mobility, but Musk isn't having any of it. In fact, he's gone as far as saying that flying cars are a dumb idea, at least for city travel. He says right here, and this was an interview that he did with Bloomberg, but quoted here in Supercar Blondie website, says, obviously I like flying things, but it's difficult to imagine the flying car becoming a scalable solution. One of his major concerns is fender benders up in the air sending down debris that could injure people. If somebody doesn't maintain their flying car, he says, it could drop a hubcap and guillotine you. Your anxiety level will not decrease as a result of things that weigh a lot buzzing around your head. Well, I kind of agree with that to some degree. But here's the thing. Elon Musk, Tesla, he owns Tesla. Now Tesla is investing in it as part of a company that's promising to bring an electric flying car to market by 2025. And they've just received special approval from the Federal Aviation Administration. So this company, Aleph Aeronautics, which describes itself as a sustainable mobility company. Car companies now use that phrase. Eh? They're not just car companies, they're sustainable mobility companies. Mobility companies that has been working. So Aleph Aeronautics has been working on designing and developing a flying car. And as I said, they just received, excuse me, special airworthiness certification from the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration. I wanted to talk about this the other night. So this is maybe, you may have heard some about this, but hopefully the information I'm giving you here now is adding to what you've heard, or maybe it's the first time. So this is actually in some ways a groundbreaking achievement because it marks the first time a vehicle of this kind has received legal approval to fly from the U.S. government. Sort of. I can tell you that even as far back as the 1960s, there were flying cars that you could buy. Now, they weren't really that practical. There was a Bob Newhart show back in the 60s, 70s, and they showed a flying car and in the show opener. And I actually met a guy who owned one. And really, what that was sort of an airplane with folding wings that folded back, and then it was designed so you could drive it down the road. But there have been a lot of different kinds of flying cars invented over the years, dating back as far as I say, at least the 1960s. But things have really progressed and changed. And this is what could actually make flying cars a reality, is this drone technology, right? That you're seeing with propellers that provide for vertical takeoff and landing. So Aleph unveiled its Model A flying car back in October of last year. And then since then, it has garnered significant interest and strong pre-orders from individuals and companies. So this car from this company, this sustainable mobility company, is not only drivable on public roads, but also has the capability, as I say, of vertical takeoff and landing. So it's a fusion of automotive and aviation technologies. In fact, all these flying cars that they're putting together now, they're really using the same basic technology that you see when you go to Best Buy and you buy a $500 drone, and they all run off GPS. So this Model A flying car is breaking new ground, in the sky. If you're eager to get your hands on one of these things, well, you can get one. All you have to do is put down a deposit and then pay off the other $300,000. Very affordable. So the FAA certification comes with some limitations. The FAA is actively developing policies for electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, eVTOL and eVTOL vehicles, as they're called, and their interaction with ground infrastructure is also something that they're looking at in terms of the regulatory framework that they're going to create. Aleph's special airworthiness certificate restricts the locations and purposes for which the flying car is going to be permitted to operate in as they test these things. They've made significant strides, the company, since emerging from stealth mode, as they called it, back in October 2022. Alongside the unveiling of its full-size sports car model, the company showcased two working full-size technology demonstrator cars. The flying car itself is fully electric and designed to carry one or two occupants. Jim Duchovny, the CEO of Aleph, expressed his excitement about receiving the FAA certification, saying that, quote, "It allows us to move closer to bringing people an environmentally friendly and faster commute, saving individuals and companies hours each week. This is a small step for planes, but a giant leap for cars," is what he said. And I have some video here. You want to see what it looks like? Well, check this out. Look at the way this thing flies sideways. I don't know how comfortable this would be. You'd be laying over on your side if you fly it like this, but here it comes. One more time. Here comes animation of the Model A. And this ain't no Henry Ford creation. That was sideways. That was the top of the vehicle you were looking at there as it flew by. But as I say, I don't know how comfortable that would be. You'd want it to be flat. So you'd be sitting in the chair. You'd be over like that if you were actually flying the darn thing that way. And this is the vision of the future that this company has. And check this out. Just like something out of the Jetsons, man. Meet George Jetson, Jane, his wife, his son Elroy. All those cars. Air traffic control. Come in. Look at all the peasants driving their land-based vehicles. Well, all the elites fly around in their $300,000 flying cars. Well, that's one version of it, and they have a range, I guess, of about 100 or 150 miles as they sit right now. But the company says these are really designed to drive mostly on the ground, and then you can hop over things with them, take short little hops in the air. And so here's an example of how they envision a proper use or a most common use for this particular kind of flying car. Say there's a big accident on the highway or some sort of obstruction. Maybe the road's washed out because of a flood or a giant sinkhole, or maybe Godzilla comes down and stomps and puts a big crater in the middle of the highway and you can't get by. Or Godzilla's just standing there in the middle of the highway. Or maybe a transport truck is rolled over, as in this scenario. We'll take a very close look on the left-hand side of the screen. Here it is there. See the little car moving? Okay, that's the flying car. There it is. Now it flies up and it's going to go over this overturned transport truck and then drop back down onto the pavement, and away you go. Well, how good is that? How many times have we wanted to do that when stuck on the highway because of some sort of an accident that has shut the roadway down? How many times have you been stuck in traffic, sometimes even for hours, especially if you go up around the Toronto area, or if you're in LA or New York and you're like, I got to get home. My dinner's awaiting. Well, then here it is. You just take your flying car and just fly over the trouble. And away you go. 300 grand to do that. Honey, I'll be home soon. There was a big accident, but it doesn't matter. They can play with the truck all they want. I'm a-coming home. So Tesla is involved in this venture. They've invested in the company, even though Elon Musk says flying cars are dumb. Maybe he doesn't even realize that the company has done this. Maybe he does. I don't know, but Tesla's definitely involved with Aleph. So we'll see where it goes, but it seems like flying cars might actually come to be a real thing, which is kind of cool. It's just, I'm anxious because I thought when I was a kid, I thought we'd have flying cars by the time we got to the year 2000. The year 2000 was supposed to be like very futuristic. We were supposed to be living in like cloud cities and stuff, and buzzing around in flying cars and being like the Jetsons, and we're still not there. I'm still stuck on the ground. Well, come on, let's get with it. Get me one of them flying gigs. I want one. I want one of those things. I think I do. So, OceanGate, the company that specializes in underwater exploration, well, as you know, the Titan imploded. They have found human remains inside the wreckage that has been recovered. And now today, the owner of OceanGate has suspended all company operations. The Titan underwater submersible, of course, took 5 people down. to visit the site of the Titanic shipwreck on June 18th. And among those killed was Stockton Rush, the submersible's pilot and chief executive officer. Coast Guard has confirmed that they did recover human remains along with the wreckage. And tonight on OceanGate's website, the company has confirmed in a statement that it has suspended all exploration and commercial operations. Doesn't elaborate really beyond that. That's all that they're really saying. Still making international headlines. And of course, each of the occupants paid $250,000 apiece to take that ride on the Titan. A tragedy. You know, we're talking about flying cars. I want to show you a flying bathtub. This is a vehicle. This is looking in the rear view mirror now after looking forward. But I kind of stumbled on this today, and I thought, well, how cool is that? This was something I wasn't really entirely aware of. There's a little automotive stuff in here. There's some space travel stuff. There's aeronautic engineering, history, and pop culture, all wrapped up in this story. I just bring it up because we're talking about flying cars. Well, it took a car to put this experimental aircraft into the air, because this thing was, let me just find it for you here. Where'd you go? There it is. All right, let me bring it up. This thing was a flying vehicle with no wings. Well, it had little tiny wings on the back. The body of this aircraft was designed to provide its own lift without wings. And it looks like a bathtub, like a flying bathtub. Hang on a second here. I'm going to let you look at that video. So this was a concept that NASA came up with back in the very early 1960s. And dubbed the flying bathtub. It needed to get airborne. And it's the F1, I believe is what it was. Yeah, the M2 F1 flying bathtub. So this is the car, Pontiac Catalina, convertible. This is the only hot rod that NASA ever actually built. It's probably the only hot rod that was ever financed by the U.S. government. And the reason they picked it is because it had a really wide wheelbase. They were able to put big racing slicks for a drag car on the back. Had a giant big block engine. They put a roll bar in it. They turned the passenger seat backwards so the guy sitting in the passenger seat could keep an eye on this flying bathtub thing that they created. And they put a tow rope on it. And they took it out to a dried lake bed, and that's where they tested this thing to get it airborne. But they had to have a car that was fast enough. So this is basically, a hopped up Pontiac Catalina. They produced those from about 1950 to 1981 in various incarnations. This one from about a 62, 63 Catalina. So they tow this monstrosity of a flying machine. It's actually designed to be a re-entry vehicle from outer space. They didn't want wings on it because they didn't want too much friction. They didn't want to build up too much heat. So this muscle car, it was capable of towing this crazy flying machine at a speed of about 110 to 120 miles per hour to get it into the air as a glider. But that's how fast they had to go to get it airborne. so that they could then release it, and then it would glide around and come back to Earth. So the initial tests were done that way. They did at least 400 tests in total with the flying machine, which you kind of see in the background there, and at least 50 of those were done with this car. So they tow it with this monster muscle car thing, and here's another little interesting tidbit. If you grew up in the 1970s, or maybe young in the 1980s, and you remember the television show, The $6 Million Man, I didn't know this, but until I found this story at the beginning of that show, this is the experimental aircraft that Steve Austin, the astronaut, the main character in The $6 Million Man, was supposed to have been flying. And there's actual footage of this actual concept aircraft being dropped in a test flight, and actual crash footage. That's where Steve Austin, a man barely alive, was supposed to have come from, was right there. So that was in the beginning of the show. That was this actual test, whatever it is, glider. It's a glider, essentially. And the design of that glider became the engineering inspiration for the space shuttle, ultimately. And they designed this thing from scratch, man. These guys at NASA had never, nothing like this had ever been done before. And it was pretty cool. There's another shot of it, but it took a car initially to get it into the air, and they had to drive like crazy, 110 to 120 miles per hour, while towing this glider, which weighed 1,000 pounds. Can you imagine? On a rope. Pretty cool. Very cool. And wingless. So the body of the aircraft itself, the glider, was designed to actually create lift like its own wing. I mean, that in itself almost looks like I look at it and I go, how could that possibly fly? Is that like alien technology or something? But, some people might say, yeah, especially with all the talk we've been having lately about UFOs apparently being real and whistleblowers coming forward and saying that the United States government is reverse engineering UFO technology. Well, take a look at that thing. Up until that point, did anything even look like that? Just a bathtub? And then they came up with these other designs after that. And there's the space shuttle. Same basic concept, right? Space shuttle, upon re-entry, really was just a glider. Going up, it had engines and fuel to burn. But coming back, just a glider. Re-entry, the heat-resistant tiles on the bottom, and then it would just glide back down and land like on a runway, which is very, very cool. And that was a different era. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Kind of a cool story about the car too, and a little pop culture history for you there, with the $6 Million Man story attached to it. And just also in this age of concern about the environment, that Pontiac Catalina, while towing that 1,000-pound NASA experimental glider, achieved a fuel economy rating of 4 miles per gallon. Yeah, 4 miles per gallon. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. It was a hot one. How hot was it? Well, they're saying that the Earth reached its hottest day ever recorded again today. That's now 3 days in a row. We're doomed. Doomed, I say. Climate change taking a toll. So for 3 days in a row now, the planet has reached its hottest day ever recorded. Regions all over the world enduring dangerous heat. Run for your lives. Earth warmed to the highest temperature ever recorded by human-made instruments. That's what the mainstream media is reporting tonight. They say the average global temperature reached 17.18 degrees Celsius or 62.92 degrees Fahrenheit as millions of Americans celebrated the 4th of July. Well, that was from a couple of days ago. And apparently, let me just make sure that this is an old story. Why is this being fed to me now? No. It's still current. That's right. Okay, so no, it is current. I'm sorry. I was sorry. I'm not sorry now because I was getting it right. Because on Wednesday, yesterday, the record was tied. Again, the global temperatures reached 17.18 degrees Celsius. Here's what I'm referring to. This is ABC. So first they set a record on Monday when average global temperatures measured 16.2 degrees or 61.16 degrees Fahrenheit. But it only took one day to surpass that temperature. Then it went up to 17.18, and then we tied that again Wednesday. And that's official. 3 days in a row of record-breaking temperatures. And so, I don't know, man. Like, these records actually going to go back to 1979. And I'm kind of the opinion, based on empirical evidence, that you can kind of make statistics say kind of anything you want. Sort of depends on how you want to cook the data and how it's measured, where it's measured. I don't know. Climate change, global warming, winters that are too cold, too hot, too wet, too dry. Doesn't matter what it is. It's all climate change. And we showed you the sharks coming in and hanging out off the coast of New York. Climate change, that's why they're there. That's what they say. Dogs are getting vicious because of climate change. Next thing you know, it'll be goldfish turning into carnivores, going to eat your face off. I don't know. Anyway, a lot of concern about that and a lot of concern about wildfires still. Because we're only about halfway through the wildfire season in Canada and the United States. And it's still dry in a lot of places across Canada. Now we're into July. And as of yesterday, there were 3,412 forest fires that had been recorded so far this season. That's above the average based on a 10-year cycle of 2,751. So yeah, we're getting more. I don't know why. Under investigation. It is a little weird, that's for sure. And I've honestly never seen smoke down here from forest fires where I lived before in this southern part of Ontario. I'm not too far from the U.S. border. And I know that our American friends have been concerned about this because they're being blanketed with smoke too from these wildfires. Now, I know that the numbers are down considerably today in Canada. The federal government did something that I thought looked a little strange. They held a news conference. That in itself is, I suppose, not strange, but these federal ministers, while providing this update on the wildfires, we're talking here about Bill Blair, the emergency preparedness minister, and Jean-Yves Duclos, the health minister, and then the chief medical officer of health for Canada, Theresa Tam. They all participated in this. And you know what it looked like to me? It looked like a replay of what we saw during the pandemic when these same public officials kept making appearances and speaking in this manner. I watched this and it was like, here we go again. And it seems like the rhetoric even, where they're talking about concerns about air quality, respiratory issues, even wearing masks. I mean, it's been like a replay today. Well, here's Duclos. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Les particules fines. Et si nous devons aller à l'extérieur, un couvre-visage ajusté et approprié comme un N95 peut aider à nous protéger. Let me repeat that in English. We can protect ourselves and our loved ones from wildfire smoke. Let's check the Air Quality Health Index, or AQHI, at a rating of 10 plus. That is considered to be very high risk. If the AQHI is high, or if we see and smell smoke in our area, we should consider staying indoors and avoiding strenuous outdoor activities. We can keep windows closed. We can use a clean, good quality air filter in our ventilation system. We can use a portable air purifier to filter particles from wildfire smoke. Or if we need to go outside, we can consider wearing a well-fitted respirator type mask like an N95. I'm especially pleased to be joined today by Dr. Tam because the Public Health Agency of Canada has been working well and hard with provinces and territories since day one to support communities in need. It is thanks to the great collaboration between PHAC and our trusted partners like the Canadian Red Cross, the Northwest Company, food banks, and Indigenous organizations that we can ensure that masks and other important supplies are getting to the communities that need them most. Grâce à ces partenariats.
So again, to me, this is like flashback. Feels like we're right back where we started, where they were telling everyone to wear masks and not go, before you go into a store, you can't, do anything without a mask on. And here we are again. It's just, only now it's climate change and forest fires, and they're blaming the wildfires on climate change. And we've talked to, they're talking about climate emergencies. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Well, here's Canada's federal medical officer of health, the top doc in the country, Theresa Tam, also flashback city, baby. Talk about magic mushrooms.
I think we know that through studies, short-term exposure to wildfire smoke, particularly the fine particulate matter, has been strongly associated with asthma exacerbations, increasing symptoms in people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and acute bronchitis, and other emergency room visits and hospitalizations, and also associated with all-cause mortality. So that's what we know from studies. We don't have real-time reporting from ERs or jurisdictions at this point. So it would be more at the local level where they will be able to assess the hospital impacts.
See what I mean? To me, it's like I suppose it's predictable, appropriate, maybe even to suggest that maybe you should wear a mask to deal with the smoke. To me, wearing a mask makes more sense to deal with this than it did the other thing. The reason it makes more sense is because a mask would at least have a chance of filtering out the particles, the effluent, because they're not microscopic. You can see the smoke. You can see those particles in the air. And yeah, an N95 mask, that would filter that stuff out. A virus, though, just a teeny weeny thing. Most of those cloth masks, folks, just not going to filter that stuff out. Smoke, though, that's kind of a different story. Yeah, you put even a piece of cloth over your face and it's going to help catch those particulates. Different deal. That being said, I don't know. I don't like it. It just makes me feel uneasy when I see that kind of talk. How about Pierre Poilievre? He's got a whole new look. First of all, let me find a shot here of, well, you know what? Let's just go here. Have you seen his new look? Let's look at Pierre Poilievre, the old Pierre Poilievre first. This is the one you're all familiar with. There we go. Let's bring this up. Okay, just here we go. We're gonna bring this up.
That there's an agreement to observe a
helping Canadian.
Hang on a second. There you are. There's Pierre.
Monthly mortgage payment and a 100 and.
Okay, there's the way everybody knows Pierre. I like the look. I like the way he looks here. I like the glasses. I like the crisp hair. He looks kind of stiff, very conservative. He's the kind of guy I want to be the prime minister because he's serious. He doesn't wear fancy dancy socks like the prime minister we have now. He's got the tie on, looks very businesslike, you know, maybe that's just me. I don't want my prime minister being too casual. I want a serious guy to have that job because there are serious responsibilities that come with it. I don't want somebody in there who's silly or too laid back. Yeah, I want him to be in touch with regular people, and in tune with what the needs of Canadians are. But I like the look. I mean, he looks professional. He looks smart. The glasses, I like him. But he's changed his look up, folks. They've polished him up and they've put him out there in front of people, and gone are the glasses. And it's driving the Liberals crazy because they hated him before and they used to make fun of the way he looks because he was just too darn stiff. And now they're even losing their minds more. They've got Pierre Poilievre derangement syndrome because here he is looking super sexy and macho.
Shadow Minister of Industry.
And laid back
Rick
and cool.
Rick just told me of the tragic emails he's been receiving from his constituents.
That's right. I've been receiving tragic emails from my constituents. No, not me. It's another Rick. But what do you think of his look? He's making kind of a funny face there. We'll cut him a little slack here and
They're asking him.
Okay, that's a little bit better look. Okay, his mouth's a little bit slack-jawed there, but not looking too bad. The hair still kind of crisp, but I think it's a little more blow-dried, little fluffier, The glasses are gone. He's got the contacts in. So he's looking, cooler. What he needs maybe is some aviators like Joe Biden, but then that would signal, more of a neoliberal woke kind of thing going on. Retro 70s disco aviators, so maybe not. And he's got the tie's gone. There he's got his t-shirt thing with the blazer on over top. How old is he? How old is Pierre Poilievre? I got to know, because I'm going to make a comment about myself and admit something to you that is maybe a little embarrassing. How old is Pierre Poilievre? 44 years old. Okay, at 44, is he going through a midlife crisis? Maybe. When I was working in television, when I was young and I first got in, I wanted to look older. So I would always wear the tie and the suit, and I was pretty stiff. I'm pretty stiff now. Well, maybe not nearly as stiff as I was back then, but I always had the tie on. And then as I got a little bit older, I wanted to kind of change my image up a little bit and do what he's kind of doing. And then I changed my whole thing and I kind of got rid of the tie and I started to dress more like that. And I think it was partly a sign of the times as well, but it was also, honestly, a lot of this stuff for me was a sign of insecurity. I also wear glasses, but I don't wear them here because they reflect the light and stuff and it looks terrible. But it's not a vanity thing, but it used to be a vanity thing. And so I don't wear them because I don't want the studio light shining and reflecting off the lenses. But here he is, and he's lost the glasses. I don't know if I like this look as much. To me, he's looking, I guess maybe it just reminds me too much of myself and reminds me of my own former insecurities. And I suppose I probably still have some insecurities now, just not as pronounced. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like his new look? Or Frank says he looks animated. It could be. You never know. And Deborah says he's got a lizard throat. Halo says, yeah, he's 44. Vote harder. Apple, I guess, says that's my milkman. I don't know what that means. Choosy says, yeah, that flying bathtub looked like it's got my farm wagon frame wheels on it. TKR Racing says Pierre may be the solution for getting rid of Trudy, but he will not stop globalization. And I think you may be right about that. Yeah, David Moodry said the Pierre Poilievre looks like he's 28. Yeah, see, that was around, I was around 28, maybe 30 years old when I became so insecure that I got rid of the tie and took on exactly that look. Maybe I was in the wrong job. Maybe I should have run for prime minister instead of continuing to work in journalism. Anyway. But as I got older, yeah, I got to not like wearing the suits. And then I stopped being just like a reporter. I was doing more VJ, video journalism, where I was carrying the camera around myself, which I started out doing and then went back to it later. So I was doing camera work and reporting at the same time, and everybody does that now. So it's no big deal. Yeah, so kind of strange comments that don't really make a lot of sense to me, so I won't put them up on the screen. But thanks, everybody, for participating in that. And, well, good luck to Pierre Poilievre and his new look. And I would say this is the work of his handlers. I think they're managing him very carefully. He has very carefully scripted speeches. He's doing all the right things in terms of marketing and playing politics, that's for sure. And make no mistake, this change in his look, it's a response, I would say, probably to some sort of polling they've done where they've asked voters what they think of him. And then people must have been saying something like, I think he's too stiff. Got to soften him up. But me, I was really, I was just getting used to seeing him the way he was. Maybe this will grow on me. You never know. Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, the most likely successor to Justin Trudeau, but who knows what's going to happen in that next election, whenever it might be called. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so what else do we have for you tonight? Bidenomics. Don't want to miss any important stories. Oh, here's that that event coming up for world peace, marking the anniversary of the atomic bombs being dropped in Japan. Humanity for peace. No more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasaki's. Those are the hashtags. August 6th, 1 to 4 p.m. at the United Nations Plaza in Manhattan, New York. And as I said, they've got a couple of cool speakers. They've got Gerald Celente. You know, a lot of you may be familiar with him. He's a popular personality online. Says here he's a pioneer trend strategist. Gerald Celente is the founder director of the Trends Research Institute and publisher of the weekly Trends Journal magazine. He is the author of the highly acclaimed and best-selling books Trend Tracking and Trends 2000. 43-year track record of identifying, tracking, and forecasting trends. Celente is world-renowned as today's #1 trend forecaster. Earned a reputation as a trusted name at Trends for his many accurate forecasts, among them the 1987 stock market crash, the dot-com bust, the gold bull run, panic of '08, the rise of organic foods, and the popularity of gourmet coffee long before Starbucks was a household name. He's an American patriot. He's going to speak at this event, and he's a self-described warrior for the Prince of Peace. Gerald Celente, also co-founder of Occupy Peace and Freedom. And then there's Mike Matt. I don't know this person, but he's a candidate for the Libertarian Party for the presidency of the Libertarian Party, I guess, in the U.S. Don't know him. But he's going to speak too. But I'd be interested in talking to Gerald. Maybe we can get him on the show. You never know. If not, maybe we'll get Caleb back on here, Caleb Maupin, to talk about this event coming up next month. Humanity for Peace. Oops, here we go. What else do I have for you tonight? Oh, yeah. Talking about the economy, you know, Biden only has a 34% approval rating right now, according to some polls, on the economy. And a lot of people also concerned about the economy here in Canada. But, you know, it's strange in Canada because it seems like Justin Trudeau, even though there's some scratches in his Teflon, he still seems to have that Teflon on. And that's because I think he's so skilled at giving our money back to us and making us feel like he's giving us something when he's really giving us stuff that was ours to begin with. Or in reality, he's borrowing from the future, from our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to give us money now. But as a result of these economic policies by Biden and Trudeau, there are predictions that we're going to have another interest rate hike, round of hikes, and the next one coming as early as July 12th here in Canada. They're talking about interest rates going up as much as 25 basis points. So that would mean that the overnight rate would go to 5% and the prime rate to 7.2%. That would be the highest interest rate level that we've seen in at least maybe more than 30 years. And that is because of all the deficit spending and money printing, folks. No matter how Joe Biden tries to sell it to you or how Justin Trudeau tries to sell it to you, they can call it Bidenomics all they want. And the reality is we have out of control inflation. And the only way they can rein it in is to jack up the interest rates, and that becomes a big burden on the middle class and the poor. Hold on to your wallets. It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And I think you can pretty much take that to the bank. Not that I'm giving anyone very specific financial advice. If you want to get financial advice, go to a financial advisor, a professional. I'm not here to give you specific financial advice. And I need to say that because that's the responsible thing to do. Let's take another quick break here, and I'll come back and we'll dig into more news of the day, including Joe Biden defying a court order on the social media front. Don't go away.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Sorry, I couldn't get the video back up on the screen, but here I am. I'm still with you. So we saw earlier this week that the Justice is fired. That there was a court order involving social media, court ruling that would limit the Biden administration officials' communication with social media companies. And the Justice Department has filed a notice of appeal on that ruling. So the U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty, who is a Trump appointee in Louisiana, ruled Tuesday that the Biden administration officials cannot contact social media companies relating to any manner the removal, deletion, suppression, or reduction of content containing protected free speech posted on social media platforms. So this order came after two Republican attorneys general challenged the Biden administration's efforts to curb false information online, which they called a campaign of censorship. The attorneys general said federal officials coordinated and colluded with social media platforms to identify disfavored speakers, viewpoints, and content. In short, folks, this shows that the Biden administration has basically been controlling social media, directing social media. That's where this censorship has really been coming from in large part. It's not the social media companies acting on their own. They have been acting at the direction of the government, which in itself is illegal. It's unconstitutional. I'm not a U.S. constitutional expert, but I know enough about it to know that that is very likely the ruling that they would get in court. And yet, even though they just got a ruling in a court that pretty much said that, you know what happened today? The Biden administration, through their press secretary, said that they're just going to ignore the ruling as they get ready to appeal the decision. So here's a clip. Oh my goodness, where'd you go? Yes, okay, here's a clip. This is Fox News leading into the news conference where basically the press secretary says, yeah, we're just going to ignore the court order.
We are going to continue to promote responsible actions to protect public health, safety, and security when confronted by challenges like a deadly pandemic and foreign attacks on our elections. So we're going to continue to do that to promote that in a responsible way. Our view remains that social media platforms have a critical responsibility to take action or to take account of the effects of their platforms are having to the American people.
Or you could say we want them to say what we want them to say. Jeff Landry, the Louisiana Attorney General, joins me now. Attorney General, great to see you. And in fact, you spearheaded this ban. Well, now the DOJ has already appealed and has asked to put that court order on hold. I mean, does this case make it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court? What do you think?
I think it does. Look, I've been saying since last year that this is arguably one of the most important First Amendment cases, certainly in modern history. I mean, what we're seeing is a transition from the real and physical public square to a virtual public square, and the First Amendment should be transposed from one to the other. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. See, if these were truly just private companies, then yeah, they could pretty much kind of do what they want. But when they are actually being directed by government, they're no longer just private companies. They're public-private partnerships, and to act in the best interests of the public and to protect the public, because public money is actually kind of being involved and the government is involved, it gets sticky then. And the law applies in a different manner. Now they're not just a private company doing as they want. Like, you don't have to let someone into your house when it's private property. You don't have to you can refuse service. No shirt, no shoes, no service, right? Same thing with a social media company. There are certain community guidelines and standards that they all employ. But in terms of free speech, it's a different story. If the government is sitting there saying, we want you to censor that guy, and we want you to censor that woman over there, and those kids over there, they're saying stuff that we don't like, and you better shut that down, that becomes a constitutional issue. So I think he's quite right. That Attorney General could go all the way to the Supreme Court, probably will. And it is very likely one of the most important stories of today, maybe one of the most important stories of the entire year, maybe the decade. Free speech. This is what it's been all about during the pandemic. And here's the Biden administration just saying, yeah, well, there's a court order, but we're still going to contact social media companies. We don't care. We're going to tell them what we want them to say. Wow. Where's the penalty for that? If they get a conviction in court, if they get a ruling again, even upon appeal, like, who holds the president and the administration accountable when they're basically telling social media companies what information to let through and what information to censor? Obviously, some changes need to happen in the United States as well. And here in Canada, the war between the Trudeau regime and Facebook especially is just ramping up, man. I don't know where that's going. My guess is Meta, Facebook, Instagram, they'll get paid off somehow, either monetarily or they'll get some regulatory thing that will favor them to protect their company. And in exchange, they'll fall into line under Bill C-18 and Bill C-11, but especially Bill C-18, which is the one in dispute. And they'll start to pay the mainstream legacy media companies. And the mainstream media will continue to post material on the social media platforms, and they will end up being paid for it somehow. And then the federal government, likely what will end up happening is they'll just get Facebook to pay, and then they'll give the money back to Facebook through some other program, training programs or technology programs. They'll say it's some program to develop social media technology or something like that. You'll see. That's the way they do it. And then in the eyes of the public, the government wins, in reality, they just cough up even more of our money and subsidize the tech giants. So don't be surprised if that happens, because I think that's exactly where it's probably going to go. Looks like they're talking tough right now and fighting, but in reality, these companies are in bed with the government. The government's in bed with them. They work hand in hand, arm in arm, in harmony. And that's the reality today. Hang on, I will be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so tonight also, stabbing, Toronto, subway. I mean, everybody talks about gun control, right? I don't really have much detail on it here. But yes, stabbing in Toronto on the subway. And I have image here. This is just breaking news. So the suspect is still at large, caused a lot of chaos on the subway. Man in his 30s, in stable condition, in hospital after he was stabbed on a moving TTC subway car near Eglinton Station just earlier this evening, I guess. So this guy the suspect fled the station and is still at large. I have a photo of the suspect to show you. And this is the guy they're looking for. Person of interest. Walking away from the scene calmly after this happened. So this actually happened just after noon today, but we're just getting this information coming through now. Police were called to the Eglinton station about 12:20 this afternoon, and they found the victim with multiple stab wounds. So again, in the U.S., they talk about gun control. In Canada, they talk about gun control as well, because we sort of import some of our politics from the U.S. side because the U.S. media is so dominant here. But in Canada, honestly, my experience has been, as a reporter covering a lot of murders and a lot of violence over the years, that it's knife violence. It's people, they don't have guns, so they just use knives. I don't know if you're going to ban knives. You're going to blame the crime on knives. No, you have to blame the crime on the criminals and the conditions, the social conditions, the economic conditions, whatever it is that might be, the reasons behind the crimes themselves, not the weapon. So police are patrolling the transit system on the regular shifts. And so TTC violence is, a big concern. Rising violence across the country, actually, especially in bigger cities like Edmonton, Winnipeg, even Vancouver, Toronto. And we've seen horrific crimes, horrific violence take place on some of the public transit in Toronto over the past couple of years. It's on the rise. And that's one of the things that Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader, has been campaigning on. Yeah, right here. People down there saying tonight that violent incidents on the TTC, very scary. That's people are describing that a suspect as 5'10" to 6 feet tall, bald, wearing a green hooded sweatshirt, black jeans, and black and gold sunglasses. Anyone who might have seen the stabbing is being asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. And that is that story for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, that gets us to 8 p.m. this evening. And with that, I am going to wrap it up early tonight because we have so much on the go here. Another day of our Facebook ban certainly will be in place for tomorrow. Please consider supporting the channel. I will say this. We have still some long sleeve shirts with the Maverick logo embroidered on them. Not too many. Only a few of them left. If you want one, any donation of $70 or more tonight, and I will send you one of those embroidered shirts. Just make sure you tell me what size you want. And as long as they last, first come, first served, we'll send out these shirts. They are high quality, good material, not cheap stuff, with the embroidered logo. And you'll get a great shirt and you'll support the channel at the same time. You can also support the channel by providing a donation of $30 or more. And if you do that, I'll send you a t-shirt. We still have some t-shirts left as well. And again, just make sure you designate that you want a t-shirt and what size you want, and I'll make sure that you get one. Again, first come, first serve on those tonight. And you can support us by donating at Maverick. Well, actually, sorry, that's the website, mavericknews.ca, but the donations can be made at freedomreporters.com. That's the easiest way to do it. Or you can also donate at maverickdonations.com and support our news operation directly there. Support free speech at freedomreporters.com and Freedom of Media. And like, share, subscribe. That's the ticket. Like us on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, but mostly subscribe over on Rumble. And I'd say share on Facebook, but we're still banned over there. And they said you can appeal this, but they won't tell me what it is that we did wrong. It's the dumbest thing ever. It just shows how Mark Zuckerberg actually does have too much power. But we're here to put the power back to the people. We give the power to the people. Give it to you. We give you a voice right here on the Maverick News program, on the Maverick News channel. And tomorrow night, we'll give you more of a voice. We went to the chat area a little bit tonight, but tomorrow I expect we will be able to go back to the call-in portion of the show. So look forward to that, doing that with you tomorrow night. And when I return here on the Maverick News channel at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I will catch you all on the flip side. Thanks for watching.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.